that's what they are.
They're deaf and they're proud.
That's like someone getting, is it okay to call you a stripper? I'm like, yes, that's what I do.
Yes.
Yeah.
Have you seen my shoes?
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, I'll be truthful. I had a small period of time where I insisted I be called an exotic dancer.
It's okay.
That was during my whorephobia phase.
Yeah, that's okay. We all have a phase.
Did you ever experience whorephobia?
100%.
Okay.
When I first started dancing, my parents found out, it was a huge thing. I got kicked out of the house. It was like a huge.
How old were you?
I was 19, so I was back from college, you know. Okay. So I'd already moved out at 17, but was still dancing, and it was a huge, tumultuous point of our lives. And I remember my mom saying to me, like, this person would never date you because if they find out you're a dancer or you're a stripper, basically that I had scarlet lettered myself. And so I believed that for a certain amount of time. Thankfully, I honestly can't remember the moment, but thankfully at some point I gained my power back and I was like, actually I hold way more power in just being honest about who the fuck I am and what I do and that I like it. I like stripping. I like dancing. I hate the fucking narrative where it's like, oh, well, like you make it out of that life or when you're done with that or, you know, even people I've dated who have seemed super cool about it still now are like, oh, you're still at Jumbo's? Like it's a shame. Fuck you. Try to do what I do and with my body how many nights a week and let's see if you can do it. Yeah. Don't act like I'm copping out by maintaining a job that I'm very good at and that brings me joy. Yeah. So.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and I hear that, but the narrative around whether or not we live a joyful life as stripper is very convoluted because there are a lot of scenarios out there of strip clubs where it does feel like a trap and it can be abusive, but so can being in a relationship with a person, right? I was in a physically scary, trapped relationship with a man when I was 20, but have I been in that situation since? No.
And so can working in a cubicle being sexually harassed by your manager.
Right. So I see, like...
There's privilege. I recognize my privilege as well, is that I've been privileged to work in safe enough clubs and that I...
Not to say that I agree with that narrative. I'm just saying that is where that stems from, and it's our responsibility to do as much as we can to educate people to change that narrative. No, we're not trapped. Some people are trapped. Some people are trapped, like she said, in cubicles. Some people are trapped in cross-country driving big-ass trucks that they might not want to be doing that. You know, Nadia, one of our past guests, felt trapped in her very high-paying engineering job where she got PTO. And for those of you who don't know what PTO is, because I didn't know what the fuck PTO is, it means paid time off. Yeah. She felt trapped. She had paid time off.
She had PTO.
I want PTO.
Yeah, what's PTO? That sounds good.
I had to ask her in the middle of the interview, excuse me, friend, what is PTO? I have no experience in that area. But, you know, and it's something that I always go back to. It's people deal with shit. It's not, oh, you're a stripper, so it must be this way for you. It's you're this person, so it must be this way for you. And it's a person-to-person case.
100%.
I never felt trapped. And when I did feel trapped, I just adapted and pivoted and changed my narrative to not feel trapped.
Or I would leave a certain club. Like
exactly,
you know,
that's what I did.
Like
I left the club.
I've danced at a lot of clubs, not just Jumbo's.
You just leave the club.
And I would just leave. I'd be like, all right, this isn't a healthy environment for me. But I also get that that's a lot of privilege, right? That as especially a white woman, it's easier to get hired at strip clubs. It's easier to change strip clubs. Looking a certain way, it's easier to change strip clubs that other people don't have. But at the end of the day, that's
where you live.
That's in every career ever.
Exactly. And so what I do want to make sure, though, is if you're listening and you are a stripper who currently feels trapped, that there is absolutely no judgment about you feeling that way. And, like, it's not to disparage, like, oh, well, I didn't feel trapped, so we're not trapped. It's like, well, if you feel trapped, you feel trapped. And, like, you know, we don't want you to feel that way, obviously. But the point that we're trying to make is that feeling negatively or positively about anything isn't connected to necessarily the form of work or the thing that you are labeled as.
The occupation, yeah.
Right. It's such a case-to-case situation, and that what I have issue with is the generalization of, oh, you're stripping because you're trying to go to school, or you have kids, or you're trying to support a drug habit.
Or you're addicted to drugs. Yeah, that's always the best when I'm addicted to drugs. Which I'm like...
or that, oh, you must be trapped, you poor thing, don't you need to be saved? That's another very generalized narrative that I hella disagree with.
I don't like it. Yeah, I don't. Or the you're too pretty to be here.
Oh my god, that's the most annoying one.
It's so offensive.
You're so pretty. Or why are you, what are you doing wasting your time here? It's like, well, now you're judging me based on my judgment calls. Yeah. So you're basically telling me I'm fucking stupid if I'm here. Like what, why even, I can't.
It's super frustrating. It's super frustrating.
I know.
Yeah.
I know. It's our job to educate.
We're doing. That's why we're doing it now. So we appreciate you guys listening and learning new things.
Bye. And the way you're like, sorry, it sounds like you're wrapping it up. No, so I did want to talk to you about, because you stripped in DC, right? Yeah. And then you've been stripping in LA, and you stripped in Baltimore, and you know, let's just pretend we're not in coronavirus era and that we're business as usual. Okay. What have you seen like happening in the industry that may be good or bad? Like, just like what's kind of going on for you as you've been watching the industry evolve over time? What do you see?
That's a great question.
How do you feel?
You know, mixed feelings about lots of things. So, for example, the fact that pole dancing now, since I started 12 years ago, is now more of a mainstream concept, right? We had J-Lo pole dancing at the halftime show at the Super Bowl. Mm-hmm. There's pluses and minuses to that. There's pluses because it means that it's becoming a more mainstream concept, which means there's not as much taboo around it, which means that people might be more open to having conversations about it being an actual job. The negative of that is that people will idolize it, but not actually support dancers that work. So, you know, with laws that are passed, or with shadow banning on Instagram and all those kinds of things. The other thing I've just noticed is that because it has become even more mainstream since I started dancing, the amount of girls that are, you know, that are new will be like, oh, I took pole classes, where like I learned on a dirty pole, a bunch of front of old men, naked, falling, being clumsy by myself, where these bitches now come in and they've been taking pole class for like a year and now they're ready. Like, I didn't get that. Like, there was no like baby, like bumpers or whatever. When you bowl and there's bumper, there was no bumper course where I got to try it out. You know, I just had to be, so that's it. The whole dynamic has definitely changed now that pole dancing has become more popular and more mainstream, I think. Yeah. But then at the same time, you know, now that we're paid a salary, at least in California, it also changes the dynamic of customer, because people assume, oh, you're getting paid a salary, so I don't necessarily have
salary. It's hourly.
It is hourly, wage, and it is nothing.
Yeah, and by the time you get she's at the only club in California where they're paying anything. Every other club is practicing extreme wage theft. Extreme wage theft. So she, you know, in this dynamic, in this scenario, you're the only one. Well, your club is the only one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's pluses and minuses to that. Like, on one hand, yes, it's great. It is a job. I do pay taxes, so I want it to be recognized as an employee. I want benefits as an employee, though, as well, with that. Mm. But also, on the same hand, there's already that thing where people won't tip as much because they assume, oh, she's getting paid a wage.
Is that happening?
Yeah, when people for years have always been like, oh, they're getting paid. They assume we got paid. Well,
they did assume we would get paid,
but now they know we're getting paid a wage, so now they don't always tip as much, which is kind of frustrating.
I mean, it's $45 total a shift that you're making. They're only working 3 hours, making $15.
It is absolutely
an hour, and they're getting $45, which is what you should be. I mean. Also, the job that you're doing is so much harder. You deserve to get paid more. Whatever. We could talk about that for like an hour. God, that's so infuriating.
Yeah, it's really annoying.
Okay, so is that how you feel about the industry?
Yeah, that's how I feel. I just feel like I feel like the biggest change I would say is that there's pluses and minuses again to pole dancing now being a mainstream thing.
Yeah, and the thing about the J-Lo performance and like pole dancing being like that type of performance being visible as like this is a real job, it's like but what message of the job was that sending? Was it sending the message like, this is a stripper thing and stripping is a cool job, or this is pole dancing, it's what we've been shoving down your throat since 2009, that we're not like strippers, we're pole dancers? So like, what message was that performance really sending? Was it sending, hey, it's cool to be a stripper, or hey, it's cool to be a pole dancer but not a stripper because we're barefoot and we're doing this at a family event?
Yeah. No,
Does that make sense?
No, that makes complete sense. I think, especially since pole dancing now has become very popular, we've both seen the movement of not a stripper.
I've been part of the movement.
And it's very frustrating. Which, by the way, if you're a part of that movement, fuck you.
Not the not a stripper movement, but the movement. Okay,
sorry.
Relax.
Sorry. No, because like respect where it came from.
But I've been a part of the movement as far as like pushing pole dancing in the mainstream,
which is great. Which is great. You can push pole dancing to the mainstream, but there's a huge split that is pole dancing, and they don't recognize strippers, and almost is like we're better than them.
Yeah.
Which respect your ancestors.
So
like,
what do you see as an issue with that type of classification? Like what is like a long-term issue?
Because you're still continuing to push the propaganda and misinformation of that stripping is somehow bad or taboo or negative, or I'm doing okay because I'm doing it athletically. You are somehow bad because you are doing it sexually, or you're doing it for money or compensation. Where it is a job. I clock in, I clock out, I pay taxes. I can't wait to get in my sweatpants after I'm done. Like, it is a
Let me tell you
job.
What I see. Because we just found this out the other day. Yesterday I cried about it. That in Nevada, that sex workers, the legal sex workers, are being denied any benefits to unemployment if they're doing sex work, legal or not. And even though strippers, there's 12,000 of them in Las Vegas. They are the lifeblood of that tourist industry. Yeah. And they are being denied benefits because they do sex work.